when you travel, whether you want to or not, you're an ambassador for your country, and people who you interact with are going to draw conclusions about the place you're from and the kind of people that live there. So these aren't just nice vacation spots, they're people's homes.
That's Becky Schneider, co-founder of the nonprofit Two Rivers Reserve in the Ecuadorian Amazon and an InterExchange Christianson Grantee. Originally from New York, Becky spent the last 5 years in the San Ramon area of Ecuador, working with the indigenous Kichwa people. Over the years, the Kichwa have been forced into a cycle in which they've become dependent on clearing the Amazon rainforest for lumber to make a living. The practice, though, has led to the loss not only of the biodiversity of the land, but the Kichwa culture as well. As Becky puts it, plants and animals are disappearing, but so are the words and stories. I'm Mark Overman, and this is Voices of InterExchange.
At Two Rivers Reserve, our goal is to restore and preserve the natural and cultural heritage of the Ecuadorian Amazon. I've always loved wildlife and spending time in nature, and I recognize the importance that biodiversity plays for our planet. And when I talk to adults in the community, they'll tell me that there used to be big fish in the river, there used to be jaguars, and there used to be all of these animals, but they'll say now they're further in the jungle, you can't see them there anymore. That's a result of the Ecuadorian government's prior policy to take land away if it wasn't being used. So if you weren't clearing your land to sell the lumber, or if you weren't clearing it for agriculture, you were considered to not be using it, and they would give it to someone else who would do that.
Really?
Yes.
So policies that really made people clear the land.
Yes.
Or else they lose it.
Yeah, and that has kind of instilled this mindset and become part of sort of what you believe as you grow up, that you're not using your space unless it's clear cut and you can see the product you're growing and things like that. Thankfully, the government doesn't work that way anymore, and they don't take your land if you're not using it. But it's already kind of become a problem because of how people view their land now, as whether they're using it or not. It's that kind of instilled that into the population.
Yeah, that mindset.
Yeah, that
exists.
Mindset, exactly.
Well, and I was interested in what to me seemed like, a paradox of, you have people in the San Ramon area, I'm sure others as well, where they have made their living clearing the land, whether it's to sell timber or to raise cattle. Is that right? That's what they're doing.
Yes.
But of course, in making their living this way, they're damaging the land and the environment. So how do you approach a challenge like that, where you're working to ensure the land isn't damaged and is in fact reforested, but then of course you also want to ensure that people aren't losing the way they make their living?
Yes.
So how does that work, both for your work but just more generally?
Yeah, so traditionally the people in the community live sustainably and very self-sufficiently, but because now they've grown up with the land being deforested and now make their income from selling lumber, it's a very hard cycle to get out of. So part of what we're doing is to go in and ask the community what sort of change they would like to see. The problem with volunteerism is a lot of times volunteers go in with a project in mind that they want to do, and they just kind of do it, and then it's there, and it wasn't really what the community wanted. It was just kind of a feel-good thing to feel like you're giving back on your vacation. After living there and talking to some of the people, the teachers in the school asked for help to begin a traditional craft program at the school to help students market their work, and so that they can have an income for school lunches and drinking water in the classrooms. They make these really beautiful clay pieces and jewelry from seeds of the plants that are native to the area. But to begin the craft program, we need to begin to replant areas that have been cleared and money to pay for the materials. So it has been very difficult for them to start these programs when the income that they get from lumber is not enough to put food on the table for their families. So these people that have traditionally lived sustainably and in self-sufficiency are put into this cycle where they're dependent on the lumber as their only income, which is creating not only a difficult economic situation for them, but a loss of their culture. as the plants and animals associated with the Kichwa culture are found further and further in the jungle, the words and stories that go along with them begin to disappear as well. Their culture can't be separated from the forest.
Right. We'll talk more about the Kichwa culture. What is unique and specific about it, and how have you experienced it on a daily basis? I think I don't really know anything about it, and I would imagine a lot of people don't. So tell us more about that.
So the community that we live in is in a really interesting place between being still kind of recovering and finding themselves again after colonization, and sticking to their traditional beliefs. Because like I said, they're in this economic struggle with not having the money that they want to begin these businesses and start to supply for themselves, where they have to start to leave the community to find work.
Right. Okay.
And when that happens, a lot of times they're not speaking their language anymore because they're far away from the rest of the family. With the loss of the forest comes the loss of the materials to make the jewelry and the crafts. So you begin not only with the forest to lose all the biodiversity and this important ecological connection, but also a whole culture and language that's being lost. So.
Wow. And if they're being encouraged, though, to reforest, does that have any effect in helping sort of the culture regenerate?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do with the volunteers is we want people to come in with the right mindset that they're not saviors of the community. The community doesn't need saving, they just need support, and they need people to come in ready to learn just as much as they're ready to help.
You had mentioned before to me when we were speaking that the Ecuadorian government now has a program to actually encourage reforestation rather than the opposite of where they were actually encouraging deforestation. So that's a good change, I suppose. And I believe it was they are going to pay farmers to reforest. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
But you mentioned it's really a difficult thing for them to do for a lot of the farmers in the area you're living in, because it's difficult for them to actually get the paperwork to go to where they need to go to submit it. So that's something you've been working on, kind of bridging the gap between the farmers and the government. Talk more about that. It sounds like a great program, but a real challenge.
Yes, it's been difficult keeping up with the government program and the paperwork and getting everybody kind of on the same page, because these are people that their whole livelihood is based on lumber. So beginning to change that is difficult because the forest takes years, a lifetime to regenerate.
Right. It's not an overnight thing that's suddenly, okay, it's back.
Yeah. Going to the different offices, I'm trying to help the community in being that person who has the time to go and do the paperwork and tell them the requirements and when the different meetings come up, because these are all families that have to work 7 days a week to support their kids. And it's difficult for them to get in there and become part of these really beneficial programs when you don't have enough money to kind of get that started.
And in terms of ecotourism developing, what kind of opportunities are there for the people to be involved in ecotourism as a way to actually make money?
So there's a lot of different opportunities, and I want to be clear that these are the ideas that the community has come with, because it's not me or anyone's job to go in and say this is what you need and this is how you need to do it. Like they've come to me with the idea of the traditional craft program, which they don't want their traditions lost, and they recognize that they have a skill and that it's a valuable skill. They just need help getting the word out there. There's also things like the natural area that they live in. The Amazon is an amazing place to visit, and there is so much knowledge that the people hold there and are eager to share to people who visit.
Talk a little bit more about the future of Two Rivers Reserve. What are your plans for it and moving forward into the future?
In the long term, we want to be the support for the people of the community to bring people there. So I just want to be the voice that helps them to market their products, to get volunteers in, to get visitors in, so that they can work towards self-sufficiency and regaining the sustainability that they had. Our long-term goals are to reforest, to keep the culture and the stories and the traditions intact of the Kichwa people that live there. And along with preserving the culture, there's never-ending biological benefits to having the diversity of the rainforest intact.
That was Becky Schneider, co-founder of Two Rivers Reserve in Ecuador and an InterExchange Christianson Grantee. For more information on our grants and all of our programs, you can visit our website at interexchange.org and follow us on social media. I'm Mark Overman. Thanks for listening to Voices of InterExchange.